All right. What is going on, ladies and gentlemen? Welcome back to the one and only Wrestling Otaku channel. Of course, your personification of excellence on YouTube and YWC. We're the best reviews wrestling and your three-time YWC channel of the year. And I'm back here. It is now officially Friday, April the 4th of 2025. We're approaching midnight here. So hope y'all are having a good one. Hope y'all have had a good Friday. It is the start of the weekend, so hope y'all have a good weekend. Got some more content here to come on the channel, obviously very soon. But here tonight, I'm here to give you guys a video that I've been promising for the last few days now, and with a big event, big pay-per-view coming up on the weekend, on Sunday to be exact, I figured I'd go ahead and give you this video now. So I'm here tonight to give you guys my official AEW Dynasty 2025 pay-per-view predictions video. So AEW Dynasty, the pay-per-view itself, takes place, of course, this Sunday, as I mentioned before, April the 6th of 2025, emanating from the Lycurus or Lycon, or whatever they call the arena in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. And so we are 2 days, just 2 days away from the pay-per-view. Like I said, it's Fridays, takes place Sunday night. So I figured I'd go ahead and do this video now. I promised that I would in my previous video. I said either Friday or Saturday I'll give you guys this predictions video. So I'm going to go ahead and do it now, get out the way since we're 2 days away. And we do have an episode of Collision before then, between, now and Sunday, the pay-per-view. So we'll see what happens on Collision. I of course plan to watch Collision as well, just to see if, anything else transpires. But with that being said, I figure I'd go ahead and give you guys my video now. So with that being said, looking ahead, AEW Dynasty looks to be a pretty solid card on paper, just based on the matches that have been announced already. And we've got some, significant build in terms of some of these matches, some of these title matches. Specifically, the main event is very intriguing. And also, we got the start of the Owen Hart Cup tournament for both the men's and the women's side. Some of the tournament bracket was shown on Dynamite this past week on Wednesday. And some of those matches will be taking place here on this show, which I will get to in a minute. But yeah, so AEW Dynasty, if it's anything like Revolution, this is going to be a badass show, I tell you. It might not, I don't think it's going to be, looking at the match card, I don't think it's going to be as good as Revolution, but I do think that AEW is going to bring it, and they're going to deliver like they do with all their pay-per-views up to this point. And so yeah, man, with that being said, without further ado, let us get into it. So here tonight, it's time to give you guys my official AEW Dynasty 2025 predictions. So let us get into it here. So as we currently stand, there are 10 matches that have been announced for the card for the pay-per-view, according to Wikipedia. And if you guys watch Dynamite, they did a little rundown of the match card itself, or of the matches on the pay-per-view. And they added one match near the end, which was the tag match, which again, I'll get into in a little bit. But as of right now, as of their Wikipedia, there are 10 matches in total that are going to be on this card on Sunday. And from the looks of things, all these matches are going to be on the main card. I don't see any 0 hour matches, because usually they have the little P next to it, like on the side here when it's, when it's a pay-per-view, they have a little P next to it to indicate it's a pre-show or, 0 hour. But none of these matches, none of them have a P next to it. So these are all, at least as of right now, all these matches are going to be on the main show. And I imagine they're going to have a 0 hour. They always have a 0 hour. They always have a pre-show or build-up, whatever have you, that they're going to air on the YouTube. So I imagine they're going to have some matches for the 0 hour, which they haven't announced yet. I'm sure they will between now and Sunday. But as of right now, according to the Wikipedia, there are 10 matches. So I'm just going to go over these 10 matches and give my thoughts, my predictions, all that kind of stuff. So if you guys are familiar with the channel, you know how these predictions videos of mine go. Of course, I did one for Revolution like a month or two ago, so you know how that went. For those of you, anybody who's new to the channel, basically what I'm going to do is I'm going to look at every match that has been announced for the card for Sunday, that has been shown, I should say, or that we know of going into Sunday. Give you a brief kind of my thoughts on it. I'll try to keep it brief, because I know that Revolution, I said the same thing for my Revolution predictions, and it ended up being 40 minutes anyway, but, I'm going to try to keep it brief. But I'm just going to give my brief thoughts on the match, so on and so forth, the build, stuff like that, and then I'll give you my predictions, who I think is going to win and why. So with that being said, let me move this laptop over here. So with that being said, without further ado, let us get into it. Let's get right into it. I'm going to start from the bottom, because the top one is the world title match. I don't want to start with that. I'm going to go from the bottom and work my way up. All right, so let's begin. We'll start with the first of our Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinals matches for the men's side. It is going to be the matchup of Kyle Fletcher one-on-one versus Mark Briscoe. These two guys actually have history. They actually wrestled each other in the Continental Classic back in December. Of course, you all know the Continental Classic, another tournament, round robin tournament. This is a standard straight up tournament where, single match elimination style, you win, you advance, you lose, you're eliminated. So anyway, but these two guys have faced each other several times before. Again, Mark Briscoe won their matchup in the C2 or the Continental Classic, and then they had a rematch on Collision like a month or two ago, which Kyle Fletcher won emphatically. So this is a rubber match, if you will, and obviously it's a hell of a rubber match, and it's obviously, the stakes are, of course, the winner moves on. It's it's the Owen Hart. Excuse me, it's the Owen Hart Cup tournament here, the men's Owen Hart Cup tournament quarterfinal match. I think it's going to be a good match. I think these two guys, they put on a showing for the first two matches, and if it's anything like the first two matches, especially that Continental Classic match, I think it's going to be very good. This is going to be a very good, solid match, tournament match, opening round match for this tournament for the Owen Hart Cup, men's tournament. I think they're going to put on a show. As to who I think is going to win, tough call. I got to go with Kyle Fletcher. I just got to go Kyle Fletcher. All due respect to Mark Briscoe, I don't think he's going to be advancing past Kyle Fletcher. I mean, Mark Briscoe got the win at the Continental Classic, which was a shock to a lot of people, myself included. But then, Kyle Fletcher got the win in their second match on Collision, like I said, and so I think he's going to get the win here and advance to the next round. So give me Kyle Fletcher over Mark Briscoe. Moving on. So next up, we have our second match in the Owen Hart Cup tournament. This one being for the women's side, quarterfinal match. It's going to be oh my goodness, what a match this is going to be. It's going to be the four belts. It's going to be four belts Monet. Mercedes Monet, the current TBS champion, current New Japan Strong Women's champion, current Rev Pro Women's champion. Mercedes Monet, who is in this tournament, by the way. Mercedes Monet one-on-one versus former TBS champion Julia Hart. This is a first time ever match. These two actually are going to be teaming. Oh, and actually, no. Mercedes is teaming with, of all people, Harley Cameron. There's actually going to be a tag match on Collision featuring Mercedes Monet teaming up with Harley Cameron, who's also going to be in the tournament, and they're going to face Julia Hart and Athena. That's going to be on Collision. But anyway, so this is a first time ever match. And, to my recollection, I'm pretty sure Julia Hart's never faced Mercedes Monet one-on-one. But yeah, so this is going to be a very good match. Mercedes Monet has been killing it in AEW ever since she arrived last year. She's been killing it really everywhere she's gone. New Japan, the Indies, whatever promotion she's a part of, and of course in AEW. She's undefeated currently in AEW, and I do think that's going to continue. I think Julia Hart's going to give her a test, but I think Mercedes Monet is going to be a little bit too much for Julia Hart. So for this opening round, women's Owen Hart Cup tournament match, Mercedes Monet versus Julia Hart. My prediction, I got Mercedes Monet winning in emphatic fashion. Like I said, I think Julia's going to give her a challenge. It's going to be close, but give me Mercedes Monet for the victory here. She will advance to the next round. So that's my prediction for that match. All right, moving on. So next, we get our third Owen Hart Cup tournament match for the men's side. Second match for the men's side. It is going to be, oh boy, this is going to be a solid match. And they also promoted this on Dynamite as well. It's going to be Will Ospreay one-on-one versus AEW's newest signing, one of AEW's newest signings, that being Kevin Knight. So these two guys actually teamed up with each other they teamed up. They were they were partners in a tag match. They teamed up together in a tag match against Lee Johnson and I forget who his partner was right offhand. Jesus Christ, I hate when I do that. But nonetheless, they were in a tag match and they won. Of course, they won their tag match. Both Ospreay and Kevin Knight. And then it was announced that their tournament match was their Owen Hart Cup, first round match was going to be at Dynasty. And so I'm looking forward to this match. Will Ospreay, again, one of the best wrestlers on the planet, one of the best wrestlers in the world, certainly in AEW, and he is capable of delivering a top caliber match against anybody who he's in the ring with. And you got a young guy like Kevin Knight, who AEW just signed. He's had made a name for himself, a reputation over in New Japan. As part of he's wrestled in a couple tournaments. The Super Juniors tournament over in New Japan. He's held a couple titles over there. I'm pretty sure he was a part of TNA as well, if I'm not mistaken. I think he was in TNA for a little bit, for like a cup of coffee. But Kevin Knight's definitely got a reputation, in New Japan and in the Indies as well, and I believe in TNA. And this is going to be a good match. I think it's going to be a very good match. Two young guys, two young guns, two high-flying guys for the most part. Although Will Ospreay's a little more grounded now. But anyway, it should be a good match. Should be a badass match. As to who wins, I got to give it to my man Will Ospreay. I don't see Will Ospreay losing before the finals. Honestly, I think Will Ospreay's going to make a little spoiler there, for my predictions. Will Ospreay's going to go to the finals of this tournament. He's got to be in the finals for this tournament. He's got to be in this Owen Hart Cup final. Or this Owen Hart Cup tournament, he's got to make it to the finals. I don't see him losing before then. So I think it's going to be a badass match. Kevin Knight, we're going to see a lot. We're going to see what this young man is made of, but I don't think he's getting past Will Ospreay. Will Ospreay will win this match. So Will Ospreay over Kevin Knight for that one. And so that is it for the Owen Hart Foundation tournament, the Owen Hart Cup tournament matches, I should say. There's 3 of them, 2 for the men's side, 1 for the women's side. So we'll see if they add any more between now and Sunday. All right, moving on. So next up, we get our match. We got a first tag team match here. Tag match for the AEW World Tag Team Championships. The current champions, the Hurt Syndicate, that being Bob Lash and Shelton Benjamin, who are likely going to be accompanied by MVP, will take on the team of the Learning Trees, Big Bill, and Brian Keefe. So we've kind of been seeing a little jaw-jacking between these two teams the last few weeks. Big Bill and Brian Keefe want to basically prove themselves because Chris Jericho's, at one point, Chris Jericho had this, there was this backstage segment where Chris Jericho was, clearly, obviously not too happy or not too thrilled with them. And he basically said, go out there and prove yourselves and prove that you belong with me, but you belong in the Learning Tree or whatever. So then that prompted Big Bill to go out and challenge, the Hurt Syndicate here. And he talked about how he was a former AEW Tag Champion. He never got pinned for those titles, and he deserves a shot, and blah, blah, blah. And MVP told him, yeah, why don't you actually go win a match, and then we'll see what happens. And so Big Bill and Brian Keefe, won the last couple tag matches they were in the last week, and then finally this match was made official near the end of Dynamite, so they made this match after. If you guys saw the AEW Dynasty match card video I uploaded here on the channel, this match was not in it because it was announced later on. But anyway, so this match is made official. So we got the champions, the current champions, the Hurt Syndicate, Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, who have looked as dominant as any team in AEW right now. They're a well-oiled machine. They're on a roll. And I think that's going to continue, man. Big Bill and Brian Keefe, I think they're a solid team, very underrated. I think if the AEW starts to go with them, if they really establish them in the tag division, I think they can be something. But I just don't really see them making a whole lot of noise, at least in this match against this team, on this night. I just don't see it. So, AEW World Tag Team title match, Hurt Syndicate versus the Learning Tree. My prediction, I got the Hurt Syndicate winning. I do think Big Bill and Brian Keefe will give them a test. They will give them a run. But at the end of the day, the Hurt Syndicate will hold it down, will shut it down, and they will emphatically win this match, solidifiedly win this match, and they will remain the AEW World Tag Team Champions. And it's going to be a while before a team comes along that can take the titles from these two guys. So, yeah, we'll see what happens with that, man. So, I got the Hurt Syndicate winning, and they retain the titles. Moving on from that title match to another title match here. This one being a singles match, a rematch of sorts, for the AEW TNT Championship. The current champion, Daniel Garcia, defends against Adam Cole, baby! With the stipulation being that there is no time limit and outside interference is barred, or no outside interference is permitted. Basically, all parties are banned from ringside. So all parties banned from ringside and no time limit. So this has been kind of an interesting little back and forth we've seen. This is, Daniel Garcia and Adam Cole have had a decent little series of matches that we've seen the last month or so. Their first match for the TNT title, it almost went to a time limit draw, but it was stopped. It was basically interrupted. It was basically, the match was thrown out. It was a no contest because Shane Taylor Promotions got involved. And that's, again, part of why there's a stipulation for no outside interference. And, of course, that includes, of course, Adam Cole's group, Undisputed, and Daniel Garcia. He has, of course, Daddy Magic, and Cool Hand Angel on the side. But anyway, so their first match, which was a pretty darn good outing from both guys, ended in a no contest because there was outside interference. And then their second match, which took place on that special edition of Collision about a week or two ago, that ended in a time limit draw. So thus, we get this match here, which these two guys and their respective factions or their respective partners, whatever. They had a segment on Dynamite, and this match was officially made to basically be a final match or a sudden death, winner take all kind, or just a match that'll settle it all. If no time limit, there's gonna be no time limit draw. There's gonna be no outside interference. This match will settle it between these two guys for the TNT Championship. So I think it's gonna be a badass match, man. These two guys, if their first two matches are an indication, I think these two guys are gonna really put on a solid outing here, and I fully expect it, especially with a pay-per-view setting, no time limit. I think these guys could go 15-20 minutes. I do. I see them going 15-20 minutes, just like they did in their second match. And of course, again, that one ended in time limit draw, and Adam Cole almost had to win. So I do think it's going to be a solid match. Both guys are going to go to the wire. Both guys are going to showcase their ability. And I look for this to be a very underrated, kind of dark horse type match for match of the night. I think it's a dark horse candidate for match of the night. You never know. I think these two guys are capable of that. We've seen it. So I'm looking forward to this match personally. I'm really looking forward to it. I think it's going to be badass. As to who wins, it's going to be close, man. I think a lot of people are inclined to say Daniel Garcia, but honestly, I'm kind of leaning towards the challenger here. I'm kind of leaning towards Adam Cole. At the end of that second match, Adam Cole, he had the win, but again, time just expired before he could hit his finishing move. So I just get the feeling that they're teasing you with the prospect of Adam Cole winning. And I think it's going to happen. Daniel Garcia, with all due respect to him, he's had a hell of a run as champion. He's had several very good title defenses. Some of them against Adam Cole here. Well, even though we haven't had a solidified winner. But he's had a nice little title run. He's held it since December when he, defeated Jack Perry. Was it December or was it November? I think it was November at full year where he took the title from Jack Perry. But he's had a nice little run with the title since then, about 6 months. But I think it's about time for somebody to take the reins, have a run with the TNT title. And Adam Cole has yet to win a singles title in AEW, and I think now's the time for him to do so. I think he's at that point, after overcoming his injury and all the stuff that he's had to go through. I think it's worth it to put the title on Adam Cole here. So give me Adam Cole, give me the challenger. Adam Cole wins this match. And Adam Cole, baby, becomes the new AEW TNT champion. I just see it. I just get that feeling, man. I get that feeling. Daniel Garcia could retain as well, and I could be wrong. It could be a case of I'm going with my, heart over my head or whatever, but I honestly think I'm just leaning. Something's telling me Adam Cole's going to win this match. I just get that feeling, man. So I got it for the sake of this video. I'm taking Adam Cole for the win, and he will be the new TNT champion. I'm sure certain people will be happy. But yeah. But anyway, that's my prediction for that match. All right, moving on. So next up, we have another interesting match here. This one being a ROH, or Ring of Honor, I should say, themed match, or branded, I guess you could say, match. This one being for the ROH World Championship, and it will be a title versus mask match. It will be the champion, Chris Jericho, the Nueve, as he calls himself, Chris Jericho, one-on-one versus Bandito, where Chris Jericho is putting up his Ring of Honor World's title, and Bandito is putting his mask on the line, where if he loses, obviously he has to, Jericho's going to take his mask or he has to unmask, whatever the case may be. So title versus mask here. We've seen kind of a little, back and forth, in terms of this feud ever since Bandito returned. And Bandito, he's had a couple decent matches, a couple solid matches. I really just don't think he's like, I don't think we've truly seen like the full essence or the full skill set for Bandito. Like, I don't think he's had enough screen time, like, since he's been back to really kind of showcase how good he is. But with this pay-per-view, if they give Bandito like a good little, a good run, or, they allow him to go out there and just, do what he does, like, say, a 15-20 minute match, I think we were going to see just how good Bandito can be. And personally, like, with this thing, I think this, the learning tree, it was entertaining for, a while. I think a lot of people at first thought it was going to flop, and then it ended up being kind of, it had a nice little run, it got some heat, got some legit heat, stuff like that. But I think personally it's run its course, and I think just Chris Jericho, ROH World Title run has run its course. So I just think it's time, it's time for Jericho to give up the reins to somebody else. That's just me. And so hopefully we see that here, Usually we have stipulation matches like this where it's title versus whatever, where one person puts up a title and the other person puts up something else like a mask or sometimes like their career or whatever. Usually it favors the challenger. Sometimes it's, it all depends on the circumstance. Like, back in 2003, you had a title versus mask match where, Triple H beat Kane and Kane unmasked. That's a different circumstance, but we'll see what happens. But anyway, I see a solid match here. I think if they allow Bandito to do what Bandito does, and they kind of, basically allow him to go out there and, run, do what he does. If they allow him free reign to do what he does, I think we're going to get a very good match out of Bandito and Chris Jericho. I think they could have a solid match here. As to who wins, I got to go with the challenger here, man. I just got that feeling, man. I just get the feeling Bandito's going to be the one to take this title from Jericho. I just get that feeling, especially, the whole thing of Jericho taking the match from his brother, Gravity, that whole thing. I just got the feeling Bandito's got the momentum, and he's got the drive. He's got the what do you call it? He's got the fuck. Damn, I can't think of the goddamn word. He's got. Damn it! Fuck. I can't think of the. I hate when I do that. Like, it's on the tip of my tongue, but he's got the. He's got purpose. He's got a reason, to want to go at Jericho, basically, to get payback for his brother and to get one up on Chris Jericho and to take his title. So I just get the feeling that Bandito's going to be the one, man. Bandito's going to be the one to take the title from Chris Jericho. I think it should happen. Bandito's been gone long enough. He's a good enough wrestler. I think we need to see Bandito for a run at the ROH World title or Ring of Honor World's title. So yeah, Chris Jericho versus Bandito, title versus mask match, ROH World title versus Bandito's mask. As to who wins, my prediction, I'm going to go with Bandito. I think Bandito will be the new ROH World Champion after this night. Motivation, that's the word I was thinking of. That's the word I was thinking of. Bandito has the motivation, and I think he will use it to go over on Chris Jericho here and take the ROH World title. So that's my prediction for that match. Moving on. All right, so next up, we get a very, very solid match, what I think is going to be a very good match on this pay-per-view. It's going to be a trios match or a three-way match for the AEW International Championship. Oh, no, not that one. I kind of skipped ahead there. Let me go back. Okay, so next up we have a trios match. A trios match for the AEW World Trios Championships. Sorry, I kind of, again, apologies, botched there, misread. AEW World Trios Championships are going to be on the line here. The champions, the Death Riders, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Will Yuta, versus the team of Rated FTR, that being Cope, Adam Copeland, Cash Wheeler, and Dax Harwood, respectively, FTR. So, obviously, the Death Riders have been Trios champions for a good while, for a number of months. Really about the same length of time as Moxley has been world champion since, the fall of last year. So, they've been champions for quite a while. And there was a period where they weren't defending the titles, and I was like, can these guys defend the titles? I just want this. I personally want to see them be defended on TV. I personally want to see them, wrestle on TV as a trio. They're the trios champions, so they should wrestle as a trio. They should, defend the titles, and they have been doing it recently. They defended the trios titles a couple times the last few months, and so yeah. So now they're finally getting into the swing of having these trios matches again. And then on the other side, you got this whole thing with Rated FTR, where it's almost seemingly there's problems there. You got the whole thing with Dax Harwood, where Dax Harwood seemingly snapping on people, and he's had issues, or he's kind of passively aggressively stating his issues or whatever with Cope, or how he said Cope, Cope went and did what he wanted to do and challenging Moxley for the world title, and you left us with nothing or something like that. And and he's basically, he's kind of teasing. We've been seeing for the last few weeks this little tease of Dax Harwood kind of turning. And, it really kind of escalated when Dax Harwood lost that match to Will Yuta. And then he basically just snapped at the referee and then beat up, threw a bunch of security down. And then he inadvertently pushed his own partner. And then, Cash Wheeler walked off. And we've been seeing this kind of tension between the two. For the first time in FTR's, time in AEW, we're kind of seeing a little ripple, a little bit of issues between the two. A little bit of a problem, a little bit of a rift between Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler. And will it manifest itself in this match? That's the question. And of course, you got Cope there as well, who Cope's trying to keep this thing together because, he wants to go against the Death Riders. He wants to take titles, he wants to do damage to the Death Riders by taking the trios titles, and so he's got to keep this thing together. And so we'll see what happens in this match. I personally think, the problems with Dax Harwood may very well manifest in this match. It remains to be seen, or they could overcome it and they could become a solid unit again. It all remains to be seen, but I do think we're going to see something quite interesting in this match. But anyway, so AEW World Trios title match here, 6-man tag. Death Riders versus Rated FTR. My prediction for now, I got to go personally with the Death Riders. I just get the feeling that those problems, that rift between Dax Harwood and Cash Wheeler and Cope, I think it's going to be a little too much to overcome here. I just get the feeling something's going to happen. There's going to be miscommunication. There's going to be some kind of problem, and it's going to lead to them basically falling short, and the Death Riders are going to take advantage, and they're going to capitalize, and they're going to win this match and retain the titles. I just get that feeling. I get that sinking feeling that at some point Dax Harwood is just gonna turn. They've been teasing it for a while, so at some point it's got to happen. So will it happen during this match? I don't know. I mean, I'm not gonna say it will, but I just get that feeling. But for the sake of this prediction, I'm going with the Death Riders here, Claudio Castagnoli, Pac, and Will Yuta to retain the AEW World Trios titles here, and we'll see what happens with Rated FTR going forward. That's my prediction for that. All right, so next up, we get the match that I was about to read. We get a 3-way match here for the AEW International Championship, and boy, this is going to be an epic match on this card. I can just see it. Match of the night candidate right here, I swear. It's going to be the champion, the new champion, Kenny Omega, AEW International Champion. He defends his title against two challengers in this match. He defends against Ricochet, and he also defends against one of AEW's newest signings, that being Speedball Mike Bailey, which both of these guys were involved in a 4-way number one contenders match, which I believe Ricochet and Speedball Mike Bailey ended up, both, I guess, winning. I forget what the circumstance was, but anyway, so both guys ended up, getting granted, or put into this match. So it became a 3-way match. So Kenny Omega's defending his title against both these guys. And so Kenny Omega, since becoming international champion, he had that excellent match, 5-star classic, match of the year candidate already that he had against Konosuke Takeshita, where he took the title from Takeshita back at Revolution. Of course, that was a part of that string of, 5-star, 5-star match of the year candidates, at the back end of that pay-per-view. But so Kenny Omega's been tearing it up since returning from injury, and he's shown to the world that he's still as good as advertised. He is as good as he's always been, and that's a testament to how talented this guy is. And so he's going to put on another show here. Speedball Mike Bailey, in only his third match in AEW. This is only his third match. He wrestled in, his debut was against who was it? It was in that number one contender. He was put in that number one contenders tournament, if you will, for the international title, and he defeated Beast Mortos. Yeah, he defeated Beast Mortos in that match, and he was added to the 4-way. And then the second match was the 4-way, which, of course, as a result of that, he was put into this match. So this is only his third match in AEW. And if you're familiar with Speedball Mike Bailey, and I have been, I've watched plenty of his matches when he was in TNA, when he was in Impact, and he's had some matches outside of that as well, like in New Japan, and he's as good of a wrestler as you would think. Like, he's a modern day RVD, without the whining and complaining about things not being real wrestling. But yeah, so Speedball Mike Bailey is as talented as they come, and I'm so glad that AEW signed him. And Ricochet, he's been, he not necessarily my favorite, but he's been doing some good stuff since coming to AEW too. And this heel run of his has been, especially that little back and forth he had with Swerve, his heel stuff has been really good. To see him wrestle the caliber of matches that he's been wrestling, and he has this heel gimmick that he never really kind of got the opportunity to do when he was in WWE. I personally think Ricochet's really reinvented himself in AEW, and it's a great thing to see. And I think these three guys are going to put on a showing. They're going to put on a clinic. This is going to be a match of the night candidate. May very well be match of the year candidate with these three guys. And you just know you're going to get some. They're going to pull out all the stops in this match, and I'm just very excited to see what they do in this match, all three of them. So it's going to be great shit. This is probably one of the two matches I'm most looking forward to on the show, with the other one being the main event. And there's a couple of really good ones, but this one and the main event are the two matches I'm most looking forward to. So, three-way match, AEW International Championship. My prediction as to who wins, I got to go with Kenny Omega, man. I just don't see him dropping the title after just winning it, at Revolution. I just don't see. I think Kenny Omega, he was given this title to really put this international title on the map. That's why he was given this title. And the fact that he's Kenny freaking Omega, and he's, being rewarded for the fact, for everything that he's overcome and all his contributions to AEW, all his contributions to pro wrestling. But I think personally he's going to elevate this title to heights that maybe, we haven't seen it yet. And I personally think he's going to make an excellent AEW International Champion. And I think this is one of the first stops on that road. And like I said, Ricochet, Speedball, Mike Bailey, I think these two guys are in line to be potentially on that trend, or that they have the potential to be something really special, future champions. I just don't see it on this night. I think Kenny Omega wins this match. Kenny Omega retains the AEW International Championship, and he shows why he is indeed one of the best goddamn wrestlers in the world and in AEW. So that's my pick for that match. Kenny Omega retains the title. All right, so we get to our second to last match here, singles match for the AEW Women's World Championship. The current champion, Timeless, Toni Storm, defending against Megan Bayne, the number one contender. The last couple weeks, we've seen Megan Bayne basically run roughshod over pretty much everybody. She's undefeated to this point, which, it's kind of obvious. They're really trying to push Megan Bayne as, a big deal, which I think she is. I think she's definitely got, she's got the size, the physique, she's a solid wrestler, a decent enough wrestler. And then, of course, you got Timeless Toni Storm, coming off the heels of her program with her former protege, the woman from hell, if you will. And that Hollywood ending that she had with Mariah May and all that kind of stuff. And so, Timeless Toni Storm is doing some of her best work of her career. She's one of the hottest. She to me is one of the hottest, most over women's in terms of a woman's wrestler, a female wrestler. She's one of the most over acts, one of the hottest acts, and not just AEW, but in all of wrestling, like bar none. And she's doing some great stuff right now, both in the ring and like with what she's doing with segments and promos and stuff like that. She's doing some amazing work, and I think it's going to continue. And now this is going to be a challenge because Megan Bayne actually did pin Toni Storm in a tag match recently. And she, in terms of their interactions, like in ring, Megan Bayne has gotten the better of Toni Storm the last couple, pretty much every time they've, had encounters. And so it's going to be a test. It's going to be a test for Toni Storm, but I just get the feeling that Toni Storm is going to overcome like she always has. Toni Storm's faced bigger opponents before, and I think she's going to overcome here. So my prediction as to who wins, Timeless Toni Storm versus Megan Bayne, I got Toni Storm retaining, and Megan Bayne will take her first official loss in AEW. And I look for Megan Bayne, to be something special. Personally, I would like, talents like Chris Statlander and, especially Chris Statlander. I really think Chris Statlander should get a run at a serious title run with either the TBS title or the Women's World title in AEW. But I do look at upcoming talents like Megan Bayne and others, and Athena, who's being featured on the AEW roster more, and Billy Starks and other up and coming women's talents, and also more established talents, like I said, like a Chris Statlander, like a Thunder Rosa, talents like that. But for me, Toni Storm to me is on that upper echelon, on another level right now, and so it's going to be hard to stop that. But anyway, I got Toni Storm winning this match, and she retains the AEW Women's World title at least for another month. And then finally, we get what should be our main event match of the night. This one being for the AEW World Heavyweight Championship. The champion, Jon Moxley, defends against Swerve Strickland, the number one contender, man. And so, we've been waiting for this match for quite some time. This, of course, is on the same pay-per-view where Swerve Strickland 1 year ago won the AEW World's title for the first time ever, becoming the first black man to win the AEW World's title, which, again, they mentioned that a number of times. Swerve himself mentioned it a number of times in promos, so I figured I'd reiterate it here. But anyway, so it was 1 year ago here on this pay-per-view that Swerve Strickland won the AEW World's title for the first time, beating Samoa Joe. And the general consensus is that Swerve is going to try and do it again. A lot of people want him to do it again because a lot of people feel that the Death Riders story has run its course. Jon Moxley's title run has run its course. I disagree. And I mean, at least in terms of the Death Riders thing not working, because I've genuinely been interested in what direction they take the Death Riders thing. Although it's kind of stagnated, for a while now. It's just kind of at the point where I wonder, do they have a plan or do they have a payoff? It's just one of those things you think about. But nonetheless, I do think these two are going to have a badass match. These two have actually wrestled before in the Continental Classic, not the past year, but the year before the first Continental Classic. They actually wrestled each other, in a match in the I think it was the Blue Block. Was it the Blue Block? I'm pretty sure it was. But anyway, so these two have wrestled each other before, once or twice. And I believe Jon Moxley got the better of Swerve on that occasion. And then they wrestled in like a three-way match at World's End that year. But anyway, so this is going to be another badass match between these two. I'm sure they're going to go out. I'm sure they're going to pull out all the stops. They're going to go to the wire. Jon Moxley, he's going to do everything he can to keep this title, to keep this reign over AEW, to keep this reign of terror for the Death Riders over AEW. And Swerve Strickland's, he's fighting to become champion again. He's fighting for, the boys in AEW. He's fighting for himself and fighting for AEW. And we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens when these guys come to a head. And I do think this is going to be a really good match on this card. One of the better matches of the night, match of the night candidate as well. And I'm looking forward to seeing what they do, man. How this match finishes may determine the direction of AEW going forward. So as to who wins, for me, it's going to be close because I can see either guy winning. I know a lot of people want Swerve to win. I can see Jon Moxley winning as well. There's a lot of pundits out there who say they're waiting for the right opponent for Jon Moxley. Maybe they wait for All In, or not. Well, yeah, maybe they wait for All In because, Will Ospreay did declare that he wants to win the title at All In. So maybe I don't know, maybe they wait for All In. I don't know. But as to who wins, honestly, I'm leaning. It's gonna be interesting, but I'm leaning towards the challenger here. I just get that feeling that this may be the night that Swerve Strickland repeats history. History comes, things come full circle. We get a repeat of history here. And Swerve Strickland not upsets, but pulls the big win. Excuse me. Brings the big pressure. And he gets the big win. He gets a solid win over Jon Moxley, overcoming all of his, whatever he throws in this match, whether the Death Riders come out or whatever, he tries to pull in this match. I think Swerve Strickland at some point is going to overcome all of that, and he's going to find a way to win this match. He's going to find a way to finally down and beat Jon Moxley in a title match, and he, at the end of the night, will be, for the second time, the AEW World Heavyweight Champion. I just get that feeling. Man. Something in me just... It's the same thing with the TNT title match. I just get that feeling that we're going to see a new champion on this night. We're going to see a new World Heavyweight Champion on this night. And so I think it could be the right time. It could be the time to pull the trigger on Swerve Strickland and make him champion again. I just get that feeling, dude. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But, Jon Moxley, Swerve Strickland, AEW World's title match, main event. I got to give it to Swerve, man. I think he's going to do it. I think he's going to pull it out again. And he is more than capable. He's more than capable of pulling it out against a guy like Jon Moxley. And Jon Moxley is as good as they come. Jon Moxley is one of the aces of this AEW men's roster. He is one of the aces of that main event scene. So for Swerve Strickland to get a win over Jon Moxley, that is going to be a significant cap in his feather. And so I just get that feeling, man. So give me Swerve Strickland over Jon Moxley. Swerve Strickland, new AEW World Champion. Two-time AEW World Champion. So anyway, that's pretty much it for that. Those are all the matches. Those are all the matches that have been announced so far. All 10 of them, for the main card, seemingly, for the pay-per-view for Dynasty. And that's pretty much going to do it for this video. That's it for my predictions video for AEW Dynasty 2025. And we will see how these, how my predictions play out. We'll see what happens. We'll see how the pay-per-view plays out. We'll see how these matches play out. But anyway, that's pretty much going to do it for that. So thank you guys for watching. Hope you guys enjoyed this little predictions video of mine. If you did, be sure to hit that like button, leave a comment, give me your thoughts on my predictions. What matches are you looking forward to? what finishes, who you want to win, blah, blah, blah. Make some predictions of your own in the comments if you like, and we can compare and all that kind of fun stuff, because that's, something I like doing. And be sure, as always, to subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. Appreciate all the support I can get. With that being said, it's pretty much going to do it. So hope you guys will enjoy the pay-per-view on Sunday. I know I'm going to. Well, actually, no, shit. I just remembered. They got me freaking on the clock on freaking. I don't even know if I'm going to be able. Jesus Christ! Of course they would have to have me working Sunday. Of course they would have to have me working Sunday, dude. I'm going to try. I'm going to try. I'm really, really going to try to catch this thing. Like, I might not be able to catch all of it, but I'm going to catch. But if you guys are going to be watching the pay-per-view, hope you enjoy it. I do think it's going to be a really good pay-per-view. It's going to be a really good show. And so I hope you guys enjoy it. And I know I will when I see it. But anyway, that's pretty much all I got to say for this video. So thank you for watching once again. And as always, appreciate y'all, watching up to this point. For those of you who watched up to this point, so appreciate y'all for supporting the channel. And be looking out for more content very soon. And I got a special announcement. I'll be making that very soon. But anyway, that's all for now. Till next time, Wrestling Otaku signing off. See you guys later. I'm out. Peace.